Okay, here we go. Hope everyone is doing well. Trying to open up the place, see how it goes. Probably everybody's going to be infected again, or people that haven't been already. So, see what happens. We have, the best minds working on the projections and everything. So, you know. So, there's a couple of supplements that might work. One of them is NAC. I forget what the other one is, but the NAC seems like it might help the compounding effects of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, SARS coronavirus 2. Anyway, whatever. Um, if we live, then we got more time. But another thing is that people don't seem to even understand that we're as good as dead. Everybody. Nobody's, eternal. Nobody's going to live forever. And we're as good as dead. And if you could grasp the concept, it would be a lot easier for you to understand that you need a savior, you need a gospel, because they're always saying, saved from what? From hell? No, you're saved from your own corruption. And you have to take responsibility for your own corruption. Anyway, subject of today's video is the fact that evolution is one big failure. The theory of evolution, that is. Evolution doesn't exist, but the theory of evolution is one big failure after another. My entire life is that of hearing people claim evolution, say this, see, look at this, a pig's tooth. That proves that we came from monkeys. Look at this, embryos, look. Everything has to grow. That proves we all grew from the same common ancestor. Totally oblivious to the fact that everything has its own instruction, its own written directives. And as humans, we are all copies of different amounts of the same information. Now, that's very important to understand. What makes us unique is that we have different numbers of copies of the same information. It's not that there is any new information ever being generated. It's always different numbers of copies of the same information. And the information that we have is information that chimps don't have, and nothing else in the world has. No other organism has. So that's the problem with evolution, is that it fails, the belief in evolution fails to explain the abiogenesis, as it were, of written instruction that is not there. They say, oh, but evolution only happens after life has started. It jumps over the fact that life was started, was concatenated, was programmed, was instructed. Then it says, oh, well, if you change what's there, it's going to write instruction that's not there, which is not the case. Never been approved, never been observed. All adaptation, all variation is all mostly a loss of information to begin with, and never a biogenesis of written instruction that's not there. So how did you get to that level of instruction that is there? We have human levels, we have cat levels, we have dog levels, bear levels, monkey levels. How did you get to that level of written instruction that is not there? And all monkeys are not the same either, for that matter. You have lemurs that are lemurs. You have monkeys that are monkeys with tails, monkeys without tails, and then you have the apes. They're all separate classes of living organisms with different instructions to be different things. And it's really not complicated. If I can come from the Amazon and understand what the issues are, then there's no excuse for P.Z. Myers or any other biologist like Richard Dawkins. There's no excuse for them. They've had all the learning in the world. They've had all the education that people could only dream of. And of course, Christians haven't been doing science because that's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be preaching the gospel, but the sheer amount of lies being generated and thrown on people has forced Christians to become scientists, which is not even actually what they're supposed to be doing. But if that's what it takes, well, then we have to become scientists to prove you wrong. I'm not even a scientist, and I can prove you wrong. So in this video, the thing that I want to stress more than anything, is the fact that it doesn't matter what you're talking about. You can talk about this allele and that allele and this morphine, or selecting this kind of population above another population all you want. You are never going to get written instruction that's not there. Genetic drift, responding to the environment. You can talk about that all you want. You're never going to get written instruction that's not there. And if you don't get written instruction that's not there, you fail. Evolution fails miserably. It's failed ever since I've been living for 60 years. It's failed. Fallen flat on its face. And of course, now we have DNA. You know what DNA is? DNA tracks all the movements of all the people in the world, where they went and where they came from. And we all came from the Middle East, not Africa. Because everybody's represented in the Middle East, not Africa. Everybody spread out from the Middle East, not Africa. Africans didn't make it to South America because they only started migrating after the breakup of the continents. So no Africans made it to South America. The other Cushite, Nimrod, and his descendants made it to South America because they went the other way. They went around up over Alaska, the Bering Strait, and the frozen ice and everything. And you can track it with a CY chromosome. And another thing that I found out while I was researching is that it's not just C4 in Africa. There's another I think it's S60 or something. There's another population in Australia. What did I say? Africa? There's a C4 in Australia. Is not just the only population in Australia. About in some places, sometimes it's like up to 60% of the S60, if I remember right, which is not a Cushite. It's a Japhethite, but it could also have autosomal DNA from Cushites as well, because it's in that general area of Papua New Guinea and the Indonesia. Indonesians, some of them look like they could be Kushites because they are Kushites. It's not complicated, you know. But the same thing holds true with the S population. It probably has autosomal DNA from Kushites. Remember, Kushite is in the Bible, the one that can't change the color of his skin, just like the leopard can't change his spots. Yeah, the Kushite is identified by the Bible as the dark-skinned people, not the Egyptians, not the Phoenicians, the Kushites. And it's the Kushites that settled sub-Saharan Africa and Polynesia and, you know, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Philippines in places, southern Philippines, Andamanese Islands, where the D Y chromosome comes from. He's a Kushite as well, another Kushite. So this all disproves the out of Africa evolutionary belief, narrative, story, which they were wishing and hoping beyond hope that it was true, but they've been shot down by DNA genetic distance charts and studies. And that we all broke up into families, our family groups, 100 years after the flood, and we all spread out from the Middle East area. So as I was saying, I need to re-emphasize the evolutionary belief has failed and is failing and never will succeed in explaining how you can get written instruction that's not there. So if you can't explain the abiogenesis of written directives programmed into DNA molecules, you fail. You fail. You have no evidence. You fail. Go back and cry to mama or whatever you have to do. You fail. Stop teaching that nonsense. You fail. Okay? It doesn't matter what you talk about. You can talk about genetic drift and allele frequencies all you want. You're never going to get written instruction that's not there. It's not complicated. If I can understand it, there's no excuse for anybody else like Richard Dawkins or P.Z. Myers to understand it. You fail. You're a failure because you choose to push a lie, a belief that's not true. And it's about time you stop. Stop pushing this nonsense of magical matter writing programming that's not there. It's just totally absurd. So cut it out. Come back when you have a valid hypothesis, because it's not even a theory. It's just a stupid notion that you can get written instruction that's not there, and it's never been observed. So it doesn't matter, you know, what qualifications you have. If you can't explain how you can get written instruction that's not there, you fail. And all your study is worthless and useless. All your peer review is worthless and useless because you're never getting written instruction that's not there. And don't even think that you can get a living cell by throwing chemicals together, because that's just totally absurd. Hello, Redefined Living. How are you doing? Anybody want to join? Not sure. So, it's really not that hard to understand that evolution is a total failure. There's no such thing as getting or acquiring written programming without a programmer. It's not going to happen. It never has happened, never been observed. Never did you see a directed working mechanism suddenly appear from chemicals or from trash in the middle of the ocean. Never did you see it. Did you ever see a sailing ship, go back and forth through the wind, against the wind, coming out of the trash in the middle of the ocean? No, and you're never going to see that either. It doesn't happen. They call it tacking, I think. They call it tacking, going back and forth against the wind. For one thing, you have to have a computer to determine at what time you're going to switch directions, going back and forth, tacking back and forth against the wind. You need a mind or a computer to do that. Then you need the mechanism to do that. And you need the written instruction to do everything. Plus, you need the proteins to contain the information, and you need the information to make the proteins. So it's about time everyone, including creationists, admit that evolution is a total abject failure. It falls flat on its face. I don't know why you're hemming and hawing with this thing and that thing and this point and that point. It's an abject failure that never got off the ground. And if you believe in it or pushing it or are persuaded by it, you're just not looking at the facts. It's close to lunacy, or it is lunacy, probably. But I don't think people are even addressing what the issue is, because you have this great debate community as if you're debating two equal sides. They're not two equal sides. All the information is on our side. All the information is of creation by a maker. There is no evidence of anything making itself, because it can't make itself, and it can't program itself if it ever did make itself, which it can't. So I don't know what the problem is. Why are we spending so much time in debating this thing and that thing back and forth when you can't get any written instruction that's not there, let alone billions and billions of different written instruction for living organisms to be different things? Everything is what it's directed to be. Every element is what it's forced to be. And the fact that you have programmable matter that's programmed inside of you with trillions of actual batteries, literal batteries inside of you, running literal spinning electric motors, manufacturing energy molecules for you to live, should be more than enough evidence for you to give glory to your Maker. Give glory to God. But it's people that are blinded by sin. Everybody's blind by sin. You're being held back by sin, and that's another thing. You'll never have joy if you continue to sin. The only way you can have lasting joy is if you don't sin. And the level of joy that you can have is just out of this world, literally out of this world, because it's not a part of this world that you can ever have any joy. You know the Mick Jagger song, I can't get no satisfaction. Well, you shouldn't expect to be getting satisfaction, because you can't get satisfaction by sinning. You will never have joy. You will never be happy in sin.